Today on Meet the Farmer TV, slow food.
Meet the Farmer TV is made possible by Planet Earth Diversified, Melly Productions, and Leslie P. Jenkins Photography and Graphic Design.
In the Kitchen Magazine, serving the community and everyone who loves good food.
Culpeper's Channel 21, helping to preserve the agricultural history of Virginia, and Flavor Magazine, serving the Piedmont's local food and wine culture.
Today on Meet the Farmer TV, we'll examine the slow food movement, how it got started, how it got here to the United States, and what it really means to local agriculture and your local food system.
Arugula to zucchini at the White House.
Save the family farm.
In the kitchen.
In the end, the bill passed.
Be a model for local food production.
For locally grown food.
It's about market access.
Plants don't have personalities. I got one.
I call it the new American agriculture, and our whole agriculture education system is going to change.
We have a great solution to some of these crises that we're now facing.
And you're watching.
And you're watching.
And you're watching.
And you're watching
Meet the Farmer TV.
So tell me all about slow food.
all about slow food.
Yeah, and
From
what
the
you
very
do with slow
beginning.
food.
Well, I'm the regional governor of Slow Food New England.
What does that mean, regional governor of slow
Well,
food?
they divided the country into different food regions. Like we come from Clambake and Maple region, but there's Pinon region in the west, and there's Salmon Nation, that's Upper California, I believe, and Alaska. So they're all our country is divided into the areas of food, native foods mostly, or foods that are indigenous to the United States. And so the regions, besides being related to the foods that you find there, also we have to divide it up so it's easy for a person to get to all the chapters. That's what the governor does. The governor kind of oversees all the chapters in a region, and also does a lot of PR for starting new chapters in the region.
Well, now, who started Whole?
Well, slow food was started about 22 years ago now in Italy, in the Piedmont region of Italy.
In Italy?
In Italy, right.
Why in Italy?
Well, the story legend goes that Italy always said they would never have fast food. Fast food would never infiltrate Italy. Okay. And about 22 years ago, they situated the first McDonald's in Italy at the foot of the Spanish Steps in Rome. So a bunch of food journalists got together and said, we can't have this. We're going to start an organization or a movement and call it slow food in opposition to fast food.
Okay.
So that's basically how it started. And it's a bit of a story, but it was something that was ongoing for a while, because a lot of the food producers and the food writers and the wine writers started to realize that the traditional foods in Italy that had been produced for hundreds of years were no longer being produced, and they were afraid that it would become extinct, just like animals can become extinct. So they decided to start this movement, which would exist for several purposes or several reasons, but one of them was to prevent food and processes of certain kinds of food, the traditional ways to make different foods, prevent that from becoming extinct. And slow food also promotes biodiversity of food. And it also promotes fairness to the people that produce the food, paying the producer or the farmer or the breeder or what have you with a fair wage for what they produce, so that they will be encouraged to continue doing that. I think one of the reasons that a lot of these foods stopped or were in danger of extinction is because the children of the families that made them didn't see a future in it. They wanted to move to the big cities and enter more profitable trades, such as the IT industry, for instance. And they gave up living on the farm and doing what their fathers and their forefathers had done. So a lot of people in Italy saw this as a great danger, And food is very important to Italians, as it is to, many people around the Mediterranean region. So they created this movement, and it caught on. It became really popular, and it's now an international organization or movement. It's increased in America alone exponentially. We have hundreds of chapters. So that's one of the ways, that's the structure of slow food, is to create a chapter in a region. And you have a chapter leader, and you have other people who do various jobs within the chapter. And the chapters hold events. They hold tasting events, food education, taste education events, where they would bring some of these foods that are in danger of becoming extinct to the public attention. And they would have them, and people would taste them, and they would see how wonderful they were, and then they would encourage people to grow them or continue breeding the animals that produce them, or continue making that particular type of cheese or wine, for instance, or salsa or what have you. And then market the food item so that stores would buy it.
Well, how are they funded to do all this work?
It's through the money or the revenue that they collect during the events. So, for example, you would have a tasting of a particular type of apple, let's say, that had been almost extinct, an heirloom apple. And you would have chefs come in and create apple dishes. And then you would have a venue, and you would charge $15, $20, or whatever, depending on the amount of food you had. And then that money would be part of the budget for that particular chapter. And you would always try to get donations of food, and the chef, for example, would donate his or her time. Wherever you had the event would be donated by the restaurant. So most of what you were offering as an event would be donated, and then the money that you collect would be, put into your bank account, and then you would use that money to help market that particular apple, or you would use it to help the farmer buy a piece of equipment that they needed, maybe things like that. So
now, are all the people in the organization volunteers?
Yes. All the people except the staffers at the national office, which is located in New York.
Now, is that like a nonprofit organization, or is it chapter of?
We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization.
Okay.
Yes.
And then each chapter is part of that main organization, or do they have to have their own independent status?
No. Well, we have to register as a nonprofit, but we're all under the nonprofit umbrella of Slow Food. Yeah. So all of these people, the chapter leaders, if you have a board, chapter board members, everyone is a volunteer, and a lot of what we do, we get donations for. And also, there's a membership. If you want to be a member of Slow Food, there's a membership fee. Right now, I believe it's $65 a year, and that might be for a dual, for a family membership. So for that money, you would get a journal that's produced in Italy, and you would get a national journal, which I think we're now converting to an online journal. And you would get to attend any event at the membership price versus the non-membership price. Because we have a lot of people. We advertise widely for these events, and a lot of folks attend who aren't members. But we encourage people, to become members. So mainly our revenue is generated through membership and through events that we sponsor.
Well, now, Rosemary, how did you get involved?
Well, about 10 years ago, I've been a member for 10 years. And my son happened to be working at a friend's house and saw the journal Slow. It was called Slow. And this was produced in Italy. It was a very beautiful journal. On the coffee table, and looked at it and thought, I think my mother would like to read this. So my friend said, oh, sure, take it home. And he did. And I started reading it, and I just sat down right there and read it cover to cover. And I said, boy, I think I've found my niche. And I joined immediately, even though I had to travel about an hour for the closest chapter. So I joined the Slow Food Boston chapter, and I started going to events, and I became very active. And then our leaders moved or couldn't do it anymore for one reason or another, so I volunteered to become a leader. And a few years after that, our regional governor needed to step out and do something else, so then I became governor. And so it attracts people, who are just passionate about food and really hate the idea of food in America being comprised mostly of fast food like McDonald's or Kentucky Fried Chicken. And there's so many reasons why that is not good food. It's really bad for us. It's unhealthy. It doesn't taste good. It masks our taste buds with all the fat and the salt. And it's not good for the environment. I mean, there's so many reasons why we need to have good food in this country.
If this fast food is so bad, why is it so prevalent?
Well, I think that Americans have come to believe that food should be cheap. And that's the first big mistake. Food cannot be cheap. It costs a lot of money to produce good food. And you need to pay the people that produce it a fair wage, a living wage. People in America have not been in the tradition of sitting down and enjoying a meal with their family or their friends. They're always rushing. We live in a very fast society, and they're always rushing to do something else. So they really can't appreciate it, and they can't take the time to prepare a meal. So, all of these things combined kind of produced where we are today with the terrible food situation that we're in today. And it's so connected to everything else that we need to fix in our culture and our society. Fast food contributes to the environmental degradation that we have today, because if you have to truck your food from great distances, you're using a lot of fossil fuel that is then polluting the environment. And in trucking food from great distances, you're losing the taste and you're losing the nutrition. So when people eat that, their immune system becomes dysfunctional, and they're getting sicker. The Americans are very suffering from illnesses that we shouldn't be suffering from, and I really think that that's due to bad food. So it touches so much of our life and our culture. You really have to be aware of what you eat. It's so important. It's something that everybody eats, and everybody needs to be cognizant of how important this is.
Why do you think that in this time of like economic stress, that the government isn't like trying to do more with? Maybe the trucking is good because it uses lots of oil, and then we have to build highways, and we have to build more trucks, and if everybody gets sick, then the pharmaceutical companies are going to do really well because everybody's got to take Zantac or some acid medicine or some more antibiotics or so it's like it's good for the economy for us to eat terrible food and be sick.
No, but that's exactly the point. It isn't good for us because we see what happens. Our health care is horrible. We're paying so much money for health care. So many of us don't have coverage, don't have insurance, health care insurance. The pharmaceuticals they're making out really well, but they're not curing anybody. We have a few people making a lot of money and making us unhealthy in doing that. You mentioned the truckers, but they're polluting our environment, and we're suffering terrible consequences of that. So it's, it's a lose-lose situation.
So is there some way to get people really kind of on board, feeling like it's good for their local economy at least, to support slow food?
Well, yeah, because of the initiatives, that we have, the initiatives that we're promoting. We're promoting local food. So if people buy food in their local food shed community, they're supporting agriculture and they're helping the environment by not having to truck or fly the food in from great distances. They're eating better, they're enjoying it more because there's such a difference in the flavor and the taste of food that is local and seasonal. So they're getting a lot of pleasure out of it. Perhaps they're eating less, so we have a terrible problem with obesity, for instance, and diabetes in our society. So if you're really enjoying something that's satisfying, you'll eat less of it. You don't have to stuff yourself with a lot of sugar and fat. And you're also healthier, so you're causing the healthcare system less money. So, it's such a win-win situation when you pay attention to what you eat and you eat well.
Now, there have been a couple of recent books or I've heard some radio interviews of people they're really upset with the whole snobbishness of slow food, or Michael Pollan, get your finger out of my Cheetos, or the people that are just really upset of, I should be able to buy whatever cheapest thing I want, and if the frozen generic green beans are a tenth the price of the stuff at my local market, don't tell me that I shouldn't be eating those. What do you feel about that?
Well, let me address the first part of your question, the elitist part. Certainly slow food has that connotation, or has had the connotation of being an elitist white tablecloth dinner club. But we aren't about that at all. Sure, we do have many events that are situated in restaurants, and we do have full 4- and 5-course dinners paired with wines. But that's certainly not the main initiative of our movement. One of the things that slow food says is that everybody has a right to the pleasures of the table. And that's not to be taken in an elitist sense. What we mean by that is we have a right to have food that tastes good and to take part in the pleasure of sitting down at a table, eating a meal that really tastes wonderful and is very satisfying, and enjoying the conviviality of our friends and family. In fact, the chapters in slow food used to be called Conviviums. It was a word that came from, the Italians, which meant to be talkative and happy and conversational while you're eating, because those two things paired together make people really happy. So let's get back to the elitist question. As I mentioned before, we are so much more than eating a dinner or drinking wine in a fine restaurant. We're about protecting the biodiversity of plants and animals. We're about promoting the health of people through eating good nutritional food. We're about promoting fairness to the people that produce food, paying them a fair wage for what they do, promoting the profession of being a farmer or a food producer. Years ago, well, even today, who says to their child, "Oh, I really want you to be a farmer"? But that is what people should be saying today, because farming is a very, very noble profession. We're also about protecting the environment. As I said before, if you eat food that's local and seasonal, you are protecting the environment by not causing a huge carbon footprint in obtaining your food. So it's all of these things, and probably a few others that I've left out. Educating children is a huge initiative. In this country, Alice Waters from Chez Panisse in California started school gardens. And we want to do, with school gardens, we want to do what McDonald's has done in the past. There have been McDonald's in elementary schools. We want to teach children from their youngest ages in school, preschool, kindergarten, grades 1 and 2, where food really comes from. It doesn't come from a plastic package that you find in the grocery store. It comes from a garden. And there are people whose profession it is to grow that food and grow it well without using pesticides and herbicides and further harming the environment. And we want to teach them that a carrot that you just take out of the ground tastes so much better than those little things that they call carrots that you find in a plastic bag in the grocery store. There's no comparison. So
they're all round and already peeled and have no dirt.
That's
or
actually
roots
the worst carrots that they find in California. They whittle down, and that's what they make those little carrot packages out of. But if you
carrots.
Baby carrots, that's it. But if you bring
Bad carrots. Reject carrots. Transformed carrot rejects. Yeah.
And we shouldn't be giving that to our children. But if you bring both of these into children and you perform a taste test or taste comparison, you educate their palate. And when they taste that carrot that's newly dug from the ground, they're just immediately transformed.
We at the farmers market sometimes we'll have okra, little baby red okra, burgundy okra, and it's really sweet and tender, and we eat it raw, and people are like, and the little kids look at it and they bite it and they're like, whoa, that's kind of, and the parents are like, the kid just ate okra.
Right.
Like it was worse than broccoli or something.
Many times we have parents who say, my children won't eat vegetables, they just won't eat vegetables. But we prove, when we grow gardens in schools and we show them where food really comes from, and they take part in growing the food themselves and harvesting it and bringing in some cases cooking it, children will eat anything they grow and cook. I've seen this happen time and time again. Take kale. Who would think that their 6 or 7 year old would eat kale? But we do this little lesson where we bring dinosaur kale, and kids love dinosaurs, so they love to have the dinosaur kale. Is actually called locinato kale, and we take a fennel fern and we dip it in olive oil and we spread it on the kale, and then we sprinkle it with salt, and then the teacher's helper will put it on a cookie sheet and bake it in the oven for about 8 minutes at 350 degrees, and what you have is kale chips. Like potato chips, but it's kale. And so the sugars, natural sugars in the kale caramelize, and the kids love it. I have never done a taste demonstration with kale chips where the bowl wasn't licked clean by 6 and 7 year olds. It's really amazing to see.
Well, this sounds really exciting. So if I want to get involved in slow food here in Central Virginia, where do I go?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question. We have a wonderful chapter in Charlottesville. Recently, the leaders of that chapter have had to move on to do other things. So we really need some folks to step up and volunteer to be leaders or on the leadership board of Slow Food Charlottesville. We have a chapter with very active members, and we really wish that some of those members or people who are new to slow food would step up and volunteer to lead it. It's nothing that you have to do for life, certainly. In fact, we encourage people to cycle in and out of leadership positions. But it's wonderful for people to have a chance. It's a very creative kind of volunteer thing because you get to think up the events that you want to have, and you get to invite authors of cookbooks or chefs in your area, or farmers or animal producers to come and have events, and you get to invite people and make some money for the organization, and then that money in turn is cycled around to other food situations where it's needed. So it's a wonderful opportunity. It's great networking, it's great socializing, and you're doing such a wonderful thing, as well as getting to eat some really neat things.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, Rosemary, thank you so much for telling us about slow food and pointing out our own chapter here in Charlottesville.
You're welcome.
So there you have it, slow food and even the slow food chapter here in Central Virginia. Let's take a look at some of the great shows we've brought to you, showing the importance to your community about local food systems, sustainability, local operations that keep money in the local community.
These are the remnants of a SARE grant that I was awarded this year to look at developing a mushroom as an outdoor crop and optimizing manure waste management for small farms. And I have poultry manure and cow manure that I inoculated with the almond portobello, and trying to figure out a way to grow those out of doors without sterilized substrate and get a new crop for this part of Virginia.
I am also a forester, as well as how to practice restorative forestry by imitating nature and taking the worst trees first and being sensitive about the felling to not damage what you leave, because what you leave is more important than what you take. We think this is one of the best green jobs creation programs going.
I have never seen so many people so excited about fruits and vegetables. We know that when we start coming out to these markets, we're going to start talking to each other. We're going to talk about where'd you get those peaches and which stand, and let me try them, and what's fresh. We talk to each other in different ways. So this market is not just about food, it's about our community. And this is just the beginning of the discussion.
So the thing to remember about this food safety stuff is that it's not about food safety, it's about market access.
Well, the Local Food Hub is a nonprofit service organization. It's funded by local citizens and foundations in our area. It is here to help farmers with the services that they might need to access accounts that they hadn't been able to potentially get before because of quantity or distribution issues, where we can bring produce in, consolidate it, and it's a licensed warehouse with a $3 million liability policy, which should enable farmers and the product that comes through here to be able to get into any of our local institutions. So we see these independent businesses, food businesses helping independent farmers, and together we're building a strong local economy here.
Well, I call it the new American agriculture in America. Our whole agriculture education system is going to change.
We have a great solution to some of these crises that we're now facing.
It's just really refreshing to see farms and farmland that had been marginalized in our urban society now being put on the forefront and saying, you know what, hey, enough with development, and our communities are starting to rethink and really putting a lot of focus in local.
If children could get a better idea of where their food comes from and get a closer connection with the farming community, I think they could have greater pride in their community and also be more interested at an earlier age in their own nutrition.
Now you've seen a whole web of interactions and people working together in the community, so important in these economic times to keep our community strong and keep everybody healthy and working toward a green, sustainable food system. Thanks for joining us for another Meet the Farmer TV, and please let each of our underwriters know you appreciate their support bringing you Meet the Farmer TV. Check out their websites and tell them personally you appreciate their support underwriting Meet the Farmer TV.
Meet the Farmer TV is made possible by Planet Earth Diversified, Melly Productions, and Leslie P. Jenkins Photography and Graphic Design.
In the Kitchen Magazine, serving the community and everyone who loves good food.
Culpeper's Channel 21, helping to preserve the agricultural history of Virginia, and Flavor Magazine, serving the Piedmont's local food and wine culture.